Hello, everybody, and welcome into Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. And this is another episode of Texas Tuesdays here live with your host, Matthew Miller. This is number 11 for Texas Tuesdays. This is BAMA week. It is a big week for the Texas Longhorns, big week for college football. Um, and it's going to be a big game in general, like I said, guys. So please hit that like button. Please subscribe down below. It really helps out with the channel, guys. It really does. So please do that. Texas, again, we play Alabama coming off a win versus Rice. Alabama played Middle Tennessee State. And we're off and running in this college football season. It was a really exciting week for college football. I hope you guys had a good week. I hope your teams had a good week. I'm rooting for everybody this week other than Alabama, and I never root for them. So thank you guys here again for joining us. And we're going to jump right into this. Texas beats Rice 37-10. Yeah, overall, an A performance. I think that's the perfect way to describe this win versus Rice. Defense was very good. Defense was phenomenal. It was the best defensive line work, in my opinion, in probably 10 to 12 years on the defensive line. That's how good the defensive line was. I like what I saw from some of the young guys on the defense. The offense, on the other hand, was very lackluster. They came out very slow in the first half. I thought DJ Campbell really struggled in his first start, taking over for Cole Hudson at the right guard position. I thought Jake Majors at the center position kind of struggled, and I thought Hayden Connor also struggled. The interior of the offensive line was not very good. Now, the tackles, on the other hand, very, very good. Christian Jones, another good effort for him. And obviously, Kelvin Banks, the stud from last year as a freshman last year, was phenomenal. And he starts off with a pretty good game in week 1 versus Rice. Overall, Quinn Ewers, 19 of 30, 260 yards, 8.7 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. He also had a rushing touchdown that he added on in that game as well. That is through 3 quarters. He did not play in the fourth quarter. Malik Murphy took over. Really no stats from that to that jump off the board. Next up at the running back positions, we had Jane Blue, Jonathan Brooks, and C.J. Baxter all take carries in this game. Keelan Robinson did as well, but these are the ones of note. Jaden Blue, 10 carries for 55 yards, 5.5 yards per carry, so did a good job by him. Jonathan Brooks, 12 carries, 52 yards, 4.3 average. And then C.J. Baxter, 5 carries, 38 yards, 7.6 average. You could see why he was ranked the number 1 running back coming out of high school. He was very good. He just needs to work on running, his running motion. He runs very straight up. Reminds me of Adrian Peterson. I think he needs to lower his hips more when he runs. But we'll have to see if they change that. They may just want to let him run loose. If he's been running like that his whole life, honestly, there's no reason to change that. He should play in this game, by the way. He got banged up, but Sark said it was a rib injury. He was back at practice on Monday, so I expect him to play in this game. Honestly, I don't think he's the biggest X factor for us on offense, so I don't think it would have hurt if he was out, but he will be back. Next up at the wide receiver position, we have Xavier Worthy, Jordan Whittington, and Jatavian Sanders, our 3 leading wide receivers. Xavier Worthy had 90 yards receiving, Jordan Whittington 47, Jatavian Sanders 44, and he had a touchdown on that as well. So overall, good game by the wide receivers. I honestly thought A.D. Mitchell, he didn't impress me his first game. Honestly, it's Rice, though, so this is a game A.D. Mitchell has to show up. And when we dive deep into this Alabama preview, I'll talk about why he needs to show up. On the defense, David Benda was our leading tackler. I was wrong after the game. I thought it was Jalen Ford, and I believe the stats even had as Jalen Ford, but when corrected, David Benda was our leading tackler with 6. He also had half a sack. And then Ethan Burke led us in sacks with a sack and a half. And Malik Muhammad, Derek Williams, and Terrence Brooks, all the young guys in the secondary had one pass broken up. Malik Muhammad, Derek Williams being a freshman, so good job by them getting their first one. And then Terrence Brooks in his sophomore year, I think he's only like 19 years old playing. He's going to be a stud. I really like him. So overall, Texas, in my opinion, they get a C+ performance. I thought the defense got an A. I think the offense was like a C-. Special teams was like a B+, A-. So overall, C+ performance. Quinn Ewers just needs to hit the deep ball. Honestly, if he hits the deep ball on the offensive line, can be a little bit better on the interior. I think this is an A performance, but that keeps us from me getting it. That's why I have a C+. We just need to improve, guys. And again, when we dive deeper into that, we'll talk about that. Next up, we will talk about our opponent and what they did last week, and that is Alabama versus Middle Tennessee State. And it was an impressive win for Alabama, winning 56-7 versus Middle Tennessee State. Jalen Milroe, 13 of 18, 194 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, 1 on the ground. Good game for him. 48 yards carrying as well. Next up, Jace McClellan. He was actually their leading rusher. Jace McClellan was next up with 10 carries for 39 yards, 3.9 average, and 1 touchdown. Overall, steady performance from that room. It's not anything great or anything to write home about. If you talk to Alabama fans, what I read is that's the one concern they have. They didn't get much push on the offensive line running the ball, but Middle Tennessee State brought a lot of run blitzes in that game. So that is why, and that's also why you see Jalen Milroe being able to go deep to Isaiah Bond, because if you're going to run blitz the whole game, then that's going to leave you open somewhere, and that's where it left him, the deep shots. And he hit them, guys. He hit them very well. That does scare me. Isaiah Bond, like I talked about, 5 receptions, 76 yards, 15.2 yards per catch, 1 touchdown. Jermaine Burton, 3 for 62, 20.7 yards per catch, 1 touchdown. And Amari Knobloch, 2 for 49 yards, 24.5 yards per catch, and 1 touchdown. So a lot of explosive plays from this Alabama offense, and that's what Texas is going to need to limit going into this game. Again, talk about that later. Right now, it's just surface level stuff. Caleb Downs, the freshman, the number 1 ranked safety in the nation coming into the game last year, 8 total tackles. Deontay Lawson, who I really like and I think is going to be a stud for them, 7 tackles at the linebacker position and 1 sack. And then Terrion Arnold had the only pass breakup of the game. So Kool-Aid McKinstry, my guess, didn't really get challenged by Middle Tennessee State. No surprise there. He's a great cornerback, probably the best cornerback in the country. Him and Travis Hunter are vying for that number 1 spot. I think Kool-Aid McKinstry will end up being a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. Also, freaking love the name. I think it's the best name in college football. And it's going to take a lot to beat these guys. Obviously everyone knows that. They're a known commodity in college football. They are the kings of college football. I know what Georgia has done the last 2 years, but the Alabama Crimson Tide are the standard of college football. That's it, period, end of story. They are the guys you have to knock off if you want to go through and win a college football playoff, them and Georgia, but I still put them number 1 because of the success they've had under Nick Saban while he's been there. Other than his first year, he's been phenomenal there, guys. What has he won? 5 national championships. So the guy's a stud. He's the best coach of all time. It's going to take a lot to get this done. In talking about a lot to get this done, guys, what it takes to beat Alabama. So Alabama has lost since 2000, I believe, 10, guys, the Cam Newton year. What does it take to beat these guys at home? Well, it takes a lot. We can get into that right now. I threw out the LSU game in 2011 where they lost 9-6. I think that was an outlier. I think that's a game that's not going to be played anymore, especially versus Alabama. I think Texas is capable of playing that type of game. I think Alabama is too, but neither of these teams really want to play that way. I think Alabama wants to play similarly to that, but they don't want to run it 40 to 50 times a game. They just don't. Neither does LSU, or neither does Texas. So, guys, the last 4 games that have mattered that they've lost at home were with 2010 Auburn, Cam Newton, 2012 Johnny Manziel, 2015 Chad Kelly, and 2019 LSU and Joe Burrow. This is the average that these guys put up versus Alabama to get the job done. 300 yards passing is the average. 32.5 or 3.25 touchdowns accounted for, whether that's throwing like Joe Burrow did and rushing or rushing like a Cam Newton and Johnny Manziel type performance where you run for 1 and throw a couple. Or Chad Kelly, he was good on the ground too. You average 9.85 yards per attempt, 54 yards rushing, and people would be surprised by this. When you look back, Joe Burrow was actually second out of all the quarterbacks in rushing between Chad Kelly, Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel. He was second. Johnny Manziel was first with, I believe, 98 yards rushing. Joe Burrow was second in the 60 somewhere. So 54 yards on the ground for your quarterback. Your team averages 46% on third down conversion rates. They average 36.5 yards or 36.5 points per game. Every one of them won the turnover battle. Every one of them. In those 4 games combined, the turnover battle was won by the 4 teams that won: Auburn, A&M, Ole Miss, and LSU. 12-2, guys. 12-2. So that's quite an overwhelming amount. 3 out of 4 of them won the time of possession. And then your defense can only give up around 32.25 points per game. Now, I will say this. I think Quinn is capable of doing some of these things. Is he capable of doing all of them? Probably not. I don't know if he can average a 69% completion percentage because that's also what it takes. I think he can average 300 yards passing in this game, or get 300 yards passing, I should say. And I think we can score around 30 to 35 points. I think that is possible. Is it a tall task? Yes. Is it possible? Definitely is. Now, here is the comparison with Quinn Ewers, what he has done on the road. In his 5 games on the road, Quinn Ewers has averaged 20 of 30, 66.7. That's not far off of the 69%, guys. 256 yards. Again, that's we're talking about 1 to 2 throws here that he's going to have to make versus Alabama. 256 yards to 300 yards passing, 8.4 yards per attempt. That's got to go up by about 1.5 to 2 yards. And then 2 touchdowns to 0.8 interceptions. Overall, those are pretty good road stats. He has to hit 2 to 3 more completions in this game than he does in his normal road games, period. That's what he has to do. If he can go 22 of 30 and increase that completion percentage higher and also put up about 10 to 15 more yards on that and around 270, 280 yards, I think that's good enough. I think that would get the job done. In my opinion, Quinn Ewers' numbers need to look somewhere between 25 to, he needs to complete 25 to 35 passes, somewhere in between there, for probably 280 to 310 yards and have 3 total touchdowns. If he does that, I think we have a chance of winning this football game. Is it a tall task? Yes. I also think he needs to be on a couple of these RPOs. I think he needs to run. I think he needs to have 20 to 30 yards rushing. I don't think he needs to have the 54 average that I mentioned, but he has to keep them honest and have 20 to 30. If he can have 20 to 30 yards rushing, 280 to 310 yards passing, and 3 total touchdowns, I think we can win this game. I really believe that. I just mentioned what it takes on average to win this game. I don't know if he can get up to quite the averages, but I don't know if he has to, because I believe this defense is better than every defense on that list other than that Auburn defense. I think that Auburn defense was very good with Nick Fairley and those guys up front, and then in the back end, Johnny Manziel's defense has really honestly wasn't that good. Ole Miss's defense was by far the worst out of this group. In 2019, LSU was very good as well. I think we have to play a game to where we score 30 points and we can't allow them to score more than 30. I think that's really what it is. I think the first team to 30 wins this game. I think it's a defensive slug mess. And we'll talk about how we get there right now. Quinn Ewers versus the Alabama secondary. To me, it's one of the keys to the game. Quinn Ewers, like we said, we mentioned his road stats. He was good last game, but he wasn't great. Does he have to be great in this game? I don't think he has to be great, but he has to be pretty damn good. He has to be better than he was last game. Just a little bit. I don't think he has to have a lot. If he can get 2 more of those deep passes that were incomplete versus Rice versus Alabama, I think we win this game. I really believe that. Because if he hits 2 of those, we're talking about an extra 70 yards passing. And off what he have 290 yards? That's 360 yards. That's plenty versus this Alabama team. He played good in the game. Only it was a quarter and a half, but he played good there. If he can just basically take that first quarter performance and extrapolate it throughout a whole game, I think we have a chance of winning. Now, the secondary is good for Alabama. We talked about Kool-Aid McKinstry, who's very good. Terrion Arnold, the other cornerback, who's very good. Caleb Downs, who is an absolute stud. I think he's going to win the Thorpe Award. I think that's how good this kid is as a freshman at safety. Jalen Key, and then the star position, Malachi Morris, will play linebacker sometimes, and then he'll play safety other times. He is banged up. I expect him to play unless it's a serious injury, and what I've heard, I don't think it's serious or super serious, so I expect him to play. If he doesn't, that is a big loss for Alabama. We have to attack this Alabama defense at all 3 levels. And again, it starts with Quinn Ewers just hitting 1 or 2 deep balls. He doesn't need to hit 5 or 6 of them like Joe Burrow did. Joe Burrow was lighting them up downfield. You don't need to do that. Do what Auburn did. Do what Texas A&M did. It was consistently staying on the field, moving the chains with about a 46% third down rate, and then hitting your 2 to 3 deep shots. If you hit your 2 to 3 deep shots, we can win this game. Will we? That's a question. I will answer that later for you. Next up, Ja'Tavion Sanders versus the Alabama linebackers. Ja'Tavion Sanders and running backs, I should say, versus the Alabama linebackers. Alabama's linebackers, Deontay Lawson, Marshall Trisman, good players, very good downhill players, but they don't move great side to side or in space. And I think that's the key here, is getting these guys out in space and attacking them. First off, stretching them sideline to sideline, and then attacking them deep with Ja'Tavion Sanders and the running backs. Honestly, guys, I think just if we're going to win, Ja'Tavion Sanders has to be our second best player on offense. I think Ja'Tavion Sanders has to be our second best player on offense behind Quinn Ewers. I believe it should go Quinn, Ja'Tavion, and then whatever wide receiver steps up. Most likely in the past has been Xavier Worthy, and I would expect him to step up. I don't know what we're going to get out of A.D. Mitchell, but I think Ja'Tavion Sanders has to be our second best player on offense. He needs 6 to 7 catches in this game for 70 to 100 yards and a touchdowns. He needs that because he is the big mismatch that we have versus them, in my opinion. He's a guy that I would go trips one side and send him out one-on-one and make either a safety like Caleb Downs in his freshman year handle him, or one of these linebackers. And I don't think they can do it. I think he'd win that matchup more times than not. I'm hoping Sark attacks that as a matchup. We'll see what he does. But I believe that is the matchup to attack. I also like Jaden Blue, especially out of the backfield, or Keelan Robinson, because they're two more explosive guys pass catching versus those Alabama linebackers on screens, angle routes, wheel routes. If you want to put them in the slot, I would love that as well. Sark hasn't really done that much at Texas. I'm really hoping he exploits it, because I think that's the weak point of this Alabama defense is their linebackers. And then if you want to throw in their safeties in coverage, you can throw that in there as well. But I think it's mostly their linebackers. And I think Ja'Tavion Sanders is going to have a big game for us to win this game, realistically. Next up, guys, we're going to talk about the Texas D line versus that Alabama offensive line. Alabama's offensive line, you got Caden Proctor, left tackle, freshman. I think he was the best left tackle in the country coming out of high school. Tyler Booker, left guard, Seth McLaughlin, center, Darian Dalcourt, right guard, and right tackle J.C. Latham, I believe, is the weak point on this offensive line. That's why you have a check next to his name, and it could be, I believe, Miles something. Miles McVay is the other guy they consider at that right tackle position. So that is their weak point. But these guys are freaking huge. 6'4", 339 pounds is what we're talking about on average. Then our defensive line. Our defensive line is not small. Barron Sorrell, Alfred Collins, Byron Murphy, and then Ethan Burke, plus others rotating. But those are the 5 guys I threw in there. And Tavondre Sweat, sorry. 6'3", 301 is our average. These are big human beings. And honestly, I think it's going to come down to pass rushing and the pass rush for our team versus their team. I don't think Alabama's going to be able to run the ball like they normally do of Alabama teams in the past. I think they'll be good. I think they'll probably have, if I had to guess, they'll probably have 15 to 20 carries for anywhere between 60 and 80 yards. I don't think they're going to go ballistic on us unless we allow them to. And I'm talking about running backs. That's what I'm talking about, the running back stats. What we have to do is keep Jalen Milroe in the pocket and keep our rushing lanes down pat. Because if we do not do that and he escapes, he is either the most athletic guy on the field or the second most. Malik Muhammad, our freshman cornerback, might be a little bit more athletic, but one-on-one, he would destroy him. He's way bigger than Malik Muhammad, and I think Malik Muhammad would even answer. He does not want to do an Oklahoma drill with Jalen Milroe, and we shouldn't allow that to happen. We have to be good with our pass rush lanes, guys. We cannot allow this guy to break containment and get out of the pocket. I think that's another key to this game. Our D-line versus O-line, you have to keep him in the pocket. I think for us to win this game, we have to hold Jalen Milroe to under 50 yards rushing. If he has over 50 yards rushing, I believe they will win this game. We also have to keep pressure from the interior. That's how you're going to get pressure in this game. The edges are probably going to have to seal off to where they don't allow him to have a running lane. And the interior, Tavondre Sweat, Byron Murphy, Vernon Broughton are going to have to be big in this game. They were good versus Rice. They have to be just as good versus Alabama. They have to get to him up the middle. Quarterbacks will tell you the worst place to get pressure is up the middle. Sweat, Murphy, and Broughton have to be amazing coming up the middle versus that Alabama team. I really believe that, guys. That's what it's going to take. I don't expect the edge rush guys to get there very often. I really think this is going to come from the interior pressure and maybe bring some linebacker blitzes in the interior as well. But it's not going to happen with the edge rushers. The edge rushers, to me, are more important of keeping him contained. I don't really care about the sack numbers from them this game. The pressure needs to come from the interior. And these guys are huge on Alabama. So it's going to be a fun matchup to watch. I think we'll stop their run other than Jalen Milroe's the one guy that I'm, iffy on. But I think we'll stop everyone else. I don't think they have a great running back like they usually do. I think Jason McClellan's fine, but there's about 15 and 25 of those guys in college football. There's nothing special there, in my opinion. And this could bite me in the ass. He could break one off. But I really believe we're going to be able to contain the running backs. It's going to be Jalen Milroe, who I think we need to contain the most. Key players in this game for me on both sides of the ball. I talked about some of them, but we'll get into details with these other guys. Hayden Conner and Jake Majors for Texas. We'll start at the offensive line. Hayden Conner has to be better, guys. This is his third year starting at Texas. He has to be better. If not, it's about 2.5 years. He played some of his freshman year. He has to be better. He has not been good. Jake Majors has gotten progressively better, but he's still not a plus player, in my opinion. Hayden Conner definitely isn't. DJ Campbell was nowhere near that in Rice. We don't need them to be great. We need them to be average college football offensive linemen. They were not that last game. If they can be average college football offensive linemen with the 2 great tackles, we can win this game. That's a question mark that I don't know we'll get answered in this game. Honestly, I think DJ Campbell will get better throughout the year. I don't know how much progression he's going to make from Rice to Alabama. Honestly, it's kind of be hard for me to say Hayden Conner and Jake Majors can make major steps because they've been playing for a decent amount of time that these major steps probably would have already happened. So they can probably get a little bit better. But if you're going to see a jump here from week 1 to week 2, it'll be DJ Campbell. And that'd be a nice jump to have because we need it on this interior offensive line. Next up, Jatavian Sanders. I hit on this. I think he needs to have a gigantic game. I think he needs to have his best game that he's ever had at Texas. He is going to be very important. First off, in blocking when we do run, he's a good blocker and he's a big guy. He's very athletic. If he can do that, that'd be gigantic here. Number 2, if we can attack downfield, I want to see it with him because I believe he can exploit these Alabama linebackers. Like I said, Marshall Tresman and DeAndre Lawson. I think they're very good players coming to the ball. I don't think they're very good players running away from the ball. And I think coming downfield and attacking them one-on-one, or even Caleb Downs at the safety position, we can do a very good job attacking downfield. And we really need that from Jatavian Sanders. Next up, I have the linebackers in Anthony Hill and David Benda. You have to be good with your eyes and technique in this game for these two guys. I believe these are the two guys you're going to use to spy Jalen Milroe. Do not commit too early. We saw this a couple days ago with Harold Perkins and Jordan Travis. Harold Perkins committed way too early on Jordan Travis, and it caused Jordan Travis to run for about 20 to 30 yards. The difference is Jalen Milroe is a much better athlete than Jordan Travis. And if you do that, there's a chance he blows the top off and runs 50, 60 yards for a touchdown. Be good with your eyes. Trust your instincts. Don't overcommit. Do not over pursue the football. Stay in front of Jalen Milroe. Stay clear with your lanes. I know you're going to be drilled in practice this whole week. So if you make the mistake, it's going to be on you. Please do that. If you keep him in the pocket, we have a chance in this game. Again, I believe it's very simple. We have to attack downfield, and we have to get 1 to 2. I take it back, 2 to 3 big completions, and we have to keep Jalen Milroe in the pocket and make him a passer. Next up, T'Vondre Sweat. I talked about it. I think the edge rushers are going to be used to contain in this game. T'Vondre, Byron Murphy, Vernon Broughton, but I'm putting the challenge right on T'Vondre Sweat because he's been there the longest. You have to be great. You're absolutely fantastic in the Rice game, the best game you've ever played in the Longhorn as a Texas Longhorn. You have to be great. You have to attack. You have to get pressure. You have to be Aaron Donald-esque, as I might say. I don't think he's going to be that good. I'm, hyperbole here. But you have to be very good in this game. You have to get consistent pressure up the middle. You have to stop the run, which I think we will do. But that's where the pressure's got to come from. Now, on the Alabama side, Jalen Milroe. I believe this game is won or lost on the legs and arm of Jalen Milroe. I think if Jalen Milroe turns the ball over more than once, Texas wins this game. I believe Jalen Milroe rushes for over 50 yards, Alabama wins this game. I think if Jalen Milroe hits 1 or 2 deep bombs like he did versus Middle Tennessee, Alabama wins this game. It's going to come down to Jalen Milroe. It really is. It's going to be interesting what he can see. He seems like a very nice kid. He was committed to Texas one time. I have no beef with Jalen Milroe, but I hope he sucks this week. Next up, Isaiah Bond. If there's one guy on this team that can really stretch the field vertically, it's Isaiah Bond. The guy's a speedster. We need him to stay in front of us. On top of that, the more plays you allow Jalen Milroe, the more mistakes could happen with him. And with young guys, they happen more often. That's why we can't get beat deep, because if you're only allowing 4 to 5 play drives where they get beat on touchdowns, they will beat us. We cannot allow more than 1 to 2. We can't allow more than 1 big touchdown. I think we can survive 1. Anything more than that, I think it's a death sentence for us. And I think Isaiah Bond would be the culprit if we're going to get beat through the air. Next up, their linebackers, Tresman Marshall and Deontay Lawson. I think these guys need to get better in pass coverage. And if they're average in pass coverage this week, Alabama will win this football game. They can't get beat by Jatavian Sanders in our backside of the backfield. I think that's the advantage we have versus Alabama. We'll see how that plays out. We'll see if these guys can. And another thing for Texas, if you don't challenge them, they're going to destroy us because they are very good coming to the ball. Deontay Lawson is, in my opinion, they're either their second or third best player on defense, and he's probably their second best pass rusher behind Dallas Turner. You can't allow this guy to run downhill and attack. You have to make him go vertically. You have to make him go side to side. You can't allow him to come downhill at all. Next up, Terrion Arnold. I think a matchup on at the cornerback and wide receiver position is A.D. Mitchell versus Terrion Arnold. Whoever wins that matchup could help win this game. I think Xavier Worthy and Kool-Aid McKinstry will probably even each other out. I think they'll both make plays. Hopefully Kool-Aid doesn't intercept one, but he'll definitely have his pass breakups, his incompletions thrown his way. But Xavier Worthy will also have his plays too. I'd be shocked if he's held under 50 yards receiving. If he does that, Kool-Aid McKinstry probably locked up his spot as the best cornerback in America. Next up, left tackle J.C. Latham and Miles McVay. I put a slash there because Miles McVay is an or on the depth chart. That means they do not have trust there. If you have an or next to your name on the depth chart, that means you do not have trust, especially on the offensive line. We have 1 or 2 of those on our offensive line, and they're on the interior, and that's because we don't trust them. J.C. Latham is the weakness. We have to attack there, whether that's Ethan Burke, blitzes, whatever it is, confuse him, try to get him out of the game, because it'd be nice to bring in a fresh left tackle here versus that, right tackle here versus Texas. That'd be nice to get whoever starts, which will probably be J.C. Latham, out of there, bring in Miles McVay, and throw him into the fire. I think if we do that, if he's benching this game, Texas is winning this game. Honestly, probably pretty big. Okay, guys, prediction time. Winner of this game. I believe at the beginning of the season, I predicted Alabama to win this game 28-24. There's a lot of question marks for Texas. There's not as many, honestly, for Alabama. I think the only question mark Alabama has is the right tackle and Jalen Milroe. I think we have the interior on ours. Can we hit the deep ball? And those are bigger questions for me. So I'm going to take Alabama in this game. I think Alabama wins this game. I'm going to stick with my prediction because I don't see any reason to change it. I think it's going to be a good game. I think we have a chance to win this game, but it's going to be 28-24 Alabama. I think there's a lot of opportunity here for Quinn to show America what he is, because this guy has been the number 1 recruit. He's been brought up as a savior for Texas. It's time. It's shut up and go. It really is. It's time to show what you are made of. You were the #1 high school recruit ever ranked out of high school. You have to show up, buddy. And I think he could show up and we could still lose. But if he has a great game, like I said, the averages of a Cam Newton, a Johnny Manziel, a Chad Kelly, and a Joe Burrow, we'll win this game. Do I think he can do that? Probably not. Do I think he can increase his road averages? Yes. And I think increasing the road averages with the defense you have, the running backs you have, I think you can still win this game. If he's as good as those guys were, I think we win this game actually by a score or two, honestly, because we have a little bit more talent than that Ole Miss team. We have a lot more talent than Ole Miss team. We have a lot more talent than an A&M team. I think we have more talent than Auburn team. The only team that has more talent than us that has beaten Alabama at home the last couple of years is LSU. LSU is one of the 5 best college football teams of all time. I don't think we're that. So we'll see, guys. I think Alabama wins 28-24, but I think it's a good game. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, hit that like button, subscribe down below. Share it out with your friends. I want more people in here. I've got no comments. This is the biggest game of the week. I got no comments. Please bring them in here. I need more people. Hit the like button. Subscribe. Bring everyone in here. I'm going to be here Saturday after the game, probably 10:15, 10:30, talking Alabama, Texas. Hopefully Alabama loses. If they don't, I'll still be here if Alabama beats Texas. So please hit that like button and subscribe. Guys, we are going to talk about the rest of the Big 12, though. We are going to give our predictions for the rest of the Big 12 for this week. Let's break down those games real quick. And then I also bring my 5 big bets of the week. I do like to put a little money down here and there. I actually had a good week gambling. I didn't win any money, though, because I'm a dummy and made them all into parlays. I would have won a parlay, guys. I had 11-team parlay. Hit 10 of them. Lost 1. Screw you, Texas Tech. I had you -14 versus Wyoming. Okay. Friday, Illinois versus Kansas. I have Kansas. I think Kansas gets it done. I would take them on the point spread as well. I believe that's 3.5 right now. Utah versus Baylor. I'm taking an upset. I think Baylor wins this game. Everyone's counting out Baylor. This is my feeling on this. Between Texas, Alabama, Utah versus Baylor, and Texas Tech, Oregon, one of those teams, underdogs, is going to win. Period. One of them is going to win. I'm just guessing that it's going to be Baylor because there you go. I'm not going to have Texas Tech beating Oregon, and I didn't have, as you heard, Alabama losing to Texas. Southern Utah versus BYU, BYU. Troy versus Kansas State. Iowa versus Iowa State, Iowa. SMU versus Oklahoma, Oklahoma. Duquesne versus West Virginia, West Virginia. Cincy versus Pitt, Pitt. Texas versus Alabama, as you know, 28-24 Alabama. Tech versus Oregon, Oregon. UCF versus Boise, UCF. Houston versus Rice, Houston. Nichols versus TCU, TCU. Oklahoma State versus Arizona State, Oklahoma State. I think it's a good game, though. I think Arizona State, honestly, they're about the same. And it is in Tempe, so that could be an interesting game. It will be a late game. I don't know if I'll stay up for that game. We'll see. I know I'll be doing the post game, but I might go to bed after. It depends. If we win, I might not. Nebraska versus Colorado. Nebraska's getting +3 points now going to Colorado. They were like 9.5-point favorites a week ago. I'm taking Nebraska. I think Colorado, now ranked number 22, is feeling themselves a little bit too much. They're going to play a legitimate top probably 25-30 defense. TCU is probably going to be in the 70 to 80 range. So I'm taking Nebraska in this game. Give me the +3. Number 12, Utah versus Baylor. Baylor's getting 7.5. Give me Baylor on the money line. If you don't want to go that far, take Baylor, the +7.5. Number 20, Ole Miss versus number 24, Tulane. I think Ole Miss destroys them. Ole Miss wins this one. It's +7.5. I'm taking Ole Miss -7.5. Versus Tulane. Number 13, Oregon versus Texas Tech. Oregon is favored by 6.5 points. Slam Oregon. I think Oregon wins this game by 2 touchdowns. And then Texas versus Alabama. I'm taking Alabama on the money line, but I'm taking Texas to cover +7.5. So those are your 5 big bets of the week. Again, that will do it for me, guys. You guys that will watch this video in the future and that have watched this video, hit that like button, subscribe down below, go over to Mark's channel, hit that like button, subscribe down below. You guys have been awesome. Again, it's another episode of Texas Tuesdays. I'm here live every 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Hit that like button, smash it. I'm going to be here. Hit the notification bell. I'm going to be here after the game Saturday and every Tuesday from here on. I am Matthew Miller. This has been another edition of Texas Tuesdays. Hook 'em, guys.